There we go. And now share screen and whole desktop. All right. So now that we've got attendance from everybody and we are ready to go through, we're probably not going to quite finish the project today. So I've actually already, based on what the last class did, you will see that when we get back from spring break, we'll finish this project up and it'll be due at the end of class. So I'm also going to have to tweak the timing of these quizzes. So the quiz that was due today, I don't think I had turned on. So I'll tweak these. So if you already did that, that quiz will be next time, and I'll get all these updated after class. Also, midterm grades are due tomorrow, so you should have everything in tomorrow, but you can always see what your grade is in Blackboard. So, so that shouldn't be an issue. All right, in the meantime, let's go ahead and finish up this last file that we didn't quite get to last time, and that is this file. Like many files you will find yourself working on over time, especially you guys, as you move into your careers, people my age that have been taking photos with digital cameras for the last 20 years have a whole host of photos that are saved somewhere that were recorded on early digital cameras. And as a result, they don't look great. So you can see this one. If we zoom in on it with Command Plus, go ahead and open up number 15. That was the last one we didn't quite finish. You'll see that we got all kinds of those JPEG artifacts. And if we've tried to pull this into a high definition video and scale it up to fill the full high definition video, you can already kind of see what it'll look like. It's gonna look pretty grainy, pretty grungy, not great. So we're gonna use a couple tools to clean that up. Let me just go ahead and hide this real quick. And here we go. So in order to tweak this, we need to go to our image menu. And under our image menu, we're gonna see the option to adjust either the image size or the canvas size. We're going to adjust the image size. The canvas size we would use if maybe we've got this square photo, but we wanted to make the whole thing larger, the whole area. The canvas size would actually let us change this to, like, let me just show you what that would look like. If I made it bigger, then you see like I've just added more space to the canvas so I can add other images in. But that's not what we want. In this case, we want our image size. And we want to increase this, and we're going to increase it to where it will fit in a high definition video. Now, one really important thing here, let's go ahead and change the width. In this case, it's 640 pixels by 480. That means if we were to come in here and actually like get these and zoom way in, we could practically count the pixels. We can see them right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 640 across by 480 tall. So if we go into our image size and we want to change this to 1920, a very important thing we discovered last class is that you might have a different variable here on the right-hand side. So I've got mine switched to pixels because that's how video and still images are represented, is how many pixels, individual dots across and tall. Yours might already be defaulted to inches, like most of the people in the last class. And so when people tried to switch this to 1920 inches, that's a very different thing than 1920 pixels. In other words, that's like saying, hey, make this image 160 feet wide. That's not what we're looking for. So make sure you've adjusted this to pixels, and you'll see it changes it to 1920 by, in this case, 1440, because it's square. And so it's not going to be quite the correct size for a widescreen image. So we're just going to accept the width and height and hit OK. Yes, Jesse. Okay. That's a great question. So underneath the image size, when we go to change that, and I change this to 1920, we see that we've got the option to resample it in different ways. So I find that most of the time automatic works just fine, but you'll notice that there are some, if you're, for example, reducing the size of your image, that will use different algorithms for how it cleans those up. So I've got mine set to preserve details enlargement, but probably you're going to get really similar results with either automatic or preserve details. So I switched mine to preserve details, and I pulled up this reduce noise up to about 50%, and that's going to clean up some of the noise in the image. Now, of course, we should have, I can't believe I forgot it, we should automatically save this as a Photoshop document. So Shift Command S to save it as a Photoshop document. I'm going to say, okay. Oops, Photoshop document. Shift Command S, save it as Photoshop, and save. And that's going to get us a much bigger image that is now actually going to fit. And the cleaning up the preserved details and reduced noise eliminated some of the problems, but it's not completely cleaned up. If you zoom in on it, you still see we've got some really blocky bits of pixels that kind of just got chunked together here. So we're going to go ahead and use one more of our plugins, go to the filter menu and go down to neural filters. Yeah, neural filters is really handy. And at the very bottom of it, if you haven't downloaded them, you'll see a little cloud next to it. So you'll need to download that neural filter, but we're going to use that JPEG artifacts removal again. So go ahead and turn on the JPEG artifacts removal, and you should see we'll lose a little bit of detail, but it will smooth things out so that we no longer have big, ugly blockiness on the screen. Yes, ma'am. Make sure you have your background, the layer selected that you want to work on, and now go focus. There you go. Yep, so just have that one selected, and we're going to choose that JPEG artifacts removal. And down at the bottom, I've actually got mine set to output, and I'm going to change this from the current layer to a new layer so I can see the difference. So I've changed this to a new layer and hit OK, and that's going to put it out on a new layer. So we've got that background versus the new one. So if I option click again, you'll see that we lose all the JPEG artifacts, but we do lose a little bit of detail. But I'm actually okay with that as long as I've now got a cleaned up image that can scale a little bit better. So we've increased the scale dramatically. It used AI to fill in the gaps with some of the JPEG artifacts, and then we've put that out to a new layer. So I've now got this improved, and I'm just going to call this one scaled. Yes, Ryan. Okay, so once you've got it turned on, then go ahead and oh, it's not going to move. So you've got that out to the layer. You might need to cancel it for a second. Might be processing, so try that one more time. So filter, and turn on that JPEG artifact removal, and down at the bottom is process. Once it's done, it should be let you hit OK. Can you make sure I remember to get you on the attendance? All right, so once you've got that, let's go ahead and save our work, and we can quit out of Photoshop because we're done with it for now. All right. And once you've done that, let's kick over to our Photoshop project document and launch Premiere Pro. So go ahead and launch Premiere, and it's going to pop up. I'm going to save and close out of this project, and you'll get to a standard window right here, ready to go. Everybody's getting their neural processes saved. Once we can save and quit Photoshop and then open up Premiere Pro, where we can now turn all of these improved photos into a nice little travel video for our client. All right, in the meantime, let's look at what the instructions say. So it says, for photoshopping and producing a video slideshow, the objective is to learn how to use Photoshop and Premiere to create, edit, and transform a series of travel videos. And then today we will record a voiceover using the provided script and continue to enhance our skills, as well as doing our first audio recording. So we already fixed the photos. Now we're going to import them into Premiere and arrange them to create a visually appealing video and add some animation. We'll record a script provided. The script is down here in the first column of this script. And next to that is what photo is going to go in next to it. Now, just to clarify a few things, I had pulled out a photo number 3, so you'll notice it jumps straight from 1, 2 to 4. And we also see what things we learned how to do in each one of these photos. Okay, but that's going to tell you where they're going to start. And so let's kick over to Premiere and throw me a thumbs up when you're there and ready to set up our session, our project. Great. So let's go ahead and go to the File menu, New Project, or Option Command N. And I want to put this someplace. I'm going to go ahead and name it 1450 Photoshop Project. And I'm going to click on my project location and go put it in a place intentionally. So click on project location. Once you've named it, oops, I should probably put my last name, first name in there. Photoshop project, last name, first name. That way I can separate it from other ones. 1450 Photoshop project, Adam Nathan. Go to project location and choose your location. Once you're there, throw me that thumbs up. Y'all are rocking. All right, let's go ahead and make a new folder. I would put this on your hard drive. So if you've got your hard drive, this would be the place to do it. Right now, I don't have a hard drive plugged in, so I'm just going to make myself a new folder and give it the same name to keep things consistent. 1450 Photoshop project, last name, first name. That'll give me a nice clean place to save it, and I'll click choose. Once you've got that, I'm going to go down and click create, and that's going to bring us to our empty Photoshop, or not a Photoshop, our empty Premiere window. I got that. Looking around, y'all are kicking ass. So once we've done that, let's reset our workspace. Once you've got Photoshop open and this project made, let's go to our window menu workspaces. Make sure that we're in our editing workspace, since that's where we've done most of our work. Then I'm going to reset it to the saved layout so that it's no longer has any extraneous windows in there. So we've got it in editing and reset to the saved layout to get rid of any of those extra windows. Sweet. How we doing? Now let's go ahead and make a sequence that we can drop all these files in. So I'm going to come down here to my project window. If you don't have the project window open, go ahead and look for it. Make sure that it says project and it's underlined, and it should have your file name in there. And then we can either go down to this little new item icon in the corner to create our sequence, or we can always find those things under the file menu, file, new sequence, and open that up. Now we're going to use the same format as last project in Premiere, but inside of here, I want to explain just a little bit more what these are. Every one of these formats, when you click on them, you'll see that they actually give you a couple things. One is, it says at the description, for example, this RE is for editing and monitoring RE RAW 2K files. So every one of these is basically a standard developed by a different cam manufacturer or developer for recording different quality levels, sizes, and frame rates of videos. So every camera manufacturer is competing with others. So sometimes they try to create their own standards for how their cameras record to either get higher quality or smaller file sizes or easier editing. So they all have different trade-offs. For our purposes today, we're just going to go with one like you would get if you were shooting on a digital SLR camera. We're going to toggle this open to 1080p, and we're going to choose the 1080p 24 frame per second sequence. That means there's going to be 24 images every second. And if you look over here, you can see it says it's editing DSLR footage, or expecting that. Time base, you see it's actually a weird number. Instead of saying 24, it says 23.976. That's not going to cause us any problems. Everything here in the United States, VideoRise runs on what they call the NTSC standard, which I'm blanking on what that even is short for. But NTSC was how we store and transmit, and basically the standard that we use for storing and executing our video. So in that case, it actually runs that when we see a 30 frame per second clip. In the US, it actually runs at 29.97, and 24 runs at 23.976. The history of this is probably not important today, but you'll also see that the frame size is 1920 pixels high or across by 1080 tall. So it's quite a bit bigger than that little 640 by 480 image. But once we've got that selected, go down to the sequence name at the bottom, and let's give it the same name, 1450 Photoshop project, last name, first name, and hit OK. And that'll pop a little sequence down here into our timeline, or into our project window. Throw me a thumbs up once you're there. Awesome. Now you'll notice mine right now is in icon view, and down at the bottom left, we can switch between that list view that we've used most of the time and icon view. Icon view is handy when we're going to be looking at our pictures in here in a second, but list view is easier when we need to see them or sort them by name. So now let's Command Tab over to our Finder and find our final Photoshop files. So here I've actually got all of these in our folder where I've been doing all of my work. I've got all my Photoshop files here ready to go. So go find a folder full of all of those. Yes, ma'am. Well, that's just switching you to your Finder. So you should see the Finder in the top left corner. Yes. And a reminder of the shortcut to get to her desktop or to open up a Finder window. Desktop is Shift Command D will open up a new desktop window. So you could get right there. Or if you just hit, if you're in the Finder and Command N, that'll just open up a new Finder window. Yep. All right. So everybody got their Photoshop files here? All right. So let's do this. I'm going to select the first one. Traveling is something or other. I'm going to go all the way down to number 15. I'm going to skip 16 just for a second. I'm going to hold my shift key down. So once I've got the first one selected, I'm going to press and hold down on shift and click on number 15. And that is going to select everything in between. So the shift key makes selections. That's the way I remember it. So I click on the first one, hold down shift and select the last one, and it selects everything in between. So let's just grab all of them, all of the first 15, and drag and drop those over into our project window. Unless it decides it's not going to do it, then I'm going to try it one more time. And you should get this box that says importing a layered file. Everybody see that? Okay, when you go to import it. So what do we need to do? So when we're importing a Photoshop file, it's obviously still got all of those layers inside of it. So what Premiere wants to know is, do you want to import these individual layers as their own layer, or do we want to squish them all together or merge them? So I'm going to have it set to merge all layers for everything except for number 16. Number 16, we're going to animate differently. We're going to animate its layers individually. So for everything else, so it's doing number 1 right now, merge all layers. I'm going to make sure that import as merge all layers, and I'm going to hit OK. And then for file number 2, merge all layers, OK. Number 3, merge all layers, OK. So I'm just going to go through and merge everything. And that should bring all of my files here into my project window. So we just want to get them all dragged in. And for everything except for number 16, we're going to merge all the layers. Throw me a thumbs up when you got them in there and you've got them all merged together. You should then be able to double click on any of their icons and make sure that you've actually got the cleaned up, improved, photoshopped images in here with all the edits that you've made. These look great. Excellent. Throw me a thumbs up once you're there. Awesome. So we've merged all of our files into single little individual clips that only have one layer, and that is our final photo. Throw me a thumbs up once you got them. Looking good. All right. So now at the bottom, you can switch these between list view and icon view, so it's easier to kind of see them. I'm going to stay here in list view though, because I'm going to need to pull all of these into my project here in just a second. But let's go ahead and grab number 16 so it's not still sitting out there. When I grab and import number 16 and I drag and drop it in, don't know why the drag and drop is not working on the first try, but a second try did it. Instead of as merge all layers, I want to bring them in, not even as individual layers, because that would give me individual layers, but they would just be scattered in amongst all the others. I'm going to bring them in as a sequence. So they're going to be their own little miniature sequence file. And when I click on that, now it's going to bring in this dude, valley, and cave as an independent sequence. So when I hit OK, then you'll see they come in as their own little folder. And if you toggle it open, you'll see it has the 3 individual layers, which we have cut things out of, like the cave or the dude or this valley. And they come with their own little sequence file that has them all 3 layered together. So switch back to icon view, or not icon view, list view here, so we can see them all and make sure that they imported as 3 independent clips with a sequence file for them. And then you can toggle that closed. Throw me a thumbs up once you're there. Y'all are so fast. Huh? Yes, sir. Change it to a sequence and hit OK. Yep. And that will bring them in down here at the bottom as their own little folder with independent video or image clips per file. Yes, sir. Yeah. number 16. Okay, good. So go drag number 16 in. Okay, so you need to make a file new sequence. Wait, scroll to the bottom of your project. Okay, so I made one yet. Okay, so just go to file new sequence. File new sequence. Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. And then got the right thing, and then just go and give it the same name as the project. And then it's there.
I don't know when you can merge for all of them but 16
Cancel. I would delete them all and then import them one more time to make sure that they actually just hold the shift key down, click the bottom one, it'll select everything for us. Right, and just delete. There you go. You delete those. Just import them one more time. Maybe your hard drive kind of came disconnected at some as you were doing this. Okay, so select those again. Boom. Let's try it again. And you can do them all at once if you just like keep an eye on this and wait until 16. But there you go. And let's try merge publish again. Cool. All right. Let's see if that fixes it. All right, everybody else. Well, now that we've got this, we need to pick a piece of music to do our work with. So first, let's select all of the first 15 photos. So again, I'm clicking on the first one here in the list. It's got a number 1. Scroll down to the bottom, hold down the shift key, and then select 15. And that selects everything in between them all. Once you got that, just drag and drop them down onto our timeline on video layer 1. So once they're all selected, you can just drag and drop them over onto video layer 1. Sweet. Let's remind ourselves of a few shortcuts that we need to zoom our timeline so we can see all of our clips. And remember what that is? It is the backslash key. So the backslash key zooms us in and out to where we can see everything. It fills up the whole timeline. And of course, the minus and plus keys will zoom us in and out on our clips. So plus and minus zoom us in or out on our clips. And then all the modifiers and shift. Yeah, so like shift plus and minus will make our tracks taller and shorter. Let's use shift plus. They're nice and tall and we can see little thumbnails. And then command plus and minus will make them even taller if you wanted. And then I'll just use the regular plus key to zoom in here on my first clip. Okay, now we need to add some music to this track. So let's go to our Essential Sound window. Windows, Essential Sound. Now, a couple people had issues with their Essential Sound window in the last one. They would find a file, listen to it, preview, drag and drop it in, and it just wouldn't do it. So if you run into any issues, you can use any music for this project, but if for some reason your Essential Sound window will not do it, I would just go back up here to the first Premiere project, open that one up, go to the music options, and just download one of those music options and use that. So that will be just fine. So for some reason, just a couple people's Premieres just would not do it. So if you go to these music options, you could just use any of these 5 different music options if you run into issues with this next part. All right, but for the rest of us, let's go to our Essential Sound window and browse. And under browse, we can go through and find some music. So I could toggle this open and say, give me something dreamy and dynamic and emotional, maybe happy and inspiring. And I could listen to some of these. So the first one I have is this Tropical Paradise. Yeah. That makes me happy. But you pick the song that you want. So pop on some headphones, pick a song. And once I find it, I'm just going to drag and drop it over here. And I'm going to put it on the first video layer. So go ahead and grab yourself a song. And pull it into the first layer. I'll give everybody a minute or so to pick a piece of music. You can always swap it out later. Right, throw me a thumbs up once you've got a piece of music in there. Again, you can swap it out later if you find something else you'd prefer. All right. Okay, so with that piece of music in there, let's go ahead and select the piece of music, click on it, and go back up to your Essential Sound window. And instead of browsing for another piece, we're going to click to the Edit tab so that we can tag and balance our music. So under our Edit tab, you see tags for different styles of sound: dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambience. We'll explore these more in the next project, but for now, we're going to click to music. So now we have tagged this piece of music as music. So we have a couple options under here that we can toggle open and closed to be able to manipulate this. So I'm going to toggle open the loudness one first. And under here, we have a great little feature. Before these existed, you had to know audio or understand something about it to balance things out correctly. But you can actually use this auto match now. And when you click it, you'll see it says it automatically matches clip to a standard average loudness for music. So when you click auto match, you should see the volume of your music drops dramatically. And you see it's a much more kind of balanced little background music feel. So go ahead and toggle on your auto match so that it toggles your music down to a more appropriate volume for loudness. Cool. Now let's look. Your clips should be about a minute or so long. If you hit your backslash key and zoom out, you should see that the music is about a minute, or the video clips last about a minute. And we still have one more. We still have 16 to put in. So we'll do that. But what we can do with this next section here in the Essential Sound panel, if you open up duration and we turn that on, you'll see you've got two different ways to manipulate the duration of your music. First, it's going to analyze it, and then we have the option to remix it, remix the time of the music, or to stretch it. We're going to use remix. Let me just show you, though, what would happen if you chose stretch. If I switched it to stretch, and I grabbed this duration and either dragged it, you can actually just drag on these numbers, and I'll drag it down to 1 minute. I'll put it down around 1 minute. If I did that and I let go, you'll see it squishes all that audio down here. And now when I hit play, it sounds like a trap show. If I was back in Vegas at EDC, that would make sense. But that's not gonna be what we do. Hit the remix window. And now let's just take this target duration. And I'm gonna change these numbers. And let's say I'm gonna make it like a minute, and let's just say 1 minute. So 1.00.00. So that we've got 1 minute, no seconds, and no frames. That's what these other categories are holding: hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And you see what it does is it actually chops up. These little wiggly lines here are showing that it chops up the music, loops some parts, and cuts out others, and jumps to others. So it actually remixes the music. You can listen to it. I'm going to hit play and just hear how those transitions happen. And you can't even hear it. So beautifully done. It's re-timed, re-edited our music for us. Now, all of our video clips or our still images are not quite where we need them, but that's okay. We've got our music in a much better place. So I'm going to go ahead and just temporarily mute my music track. So I'm going to click the mute button, and that will mute the music track. Good to go. All right. The next thing we have to do is record our voiceover. Now, when you have all the time in the world, or you're sitting alone in a quiet studio, then you can a lot of times record your voiceover and nail it exactly as you like. Oftentimes, you have to get work done, though, even if you don't have a completed file or the final version of something. And so when we're trying to edit, all the time we use things that are typically called scratch tracks or scratch takes, meaning you're just going to grab it. It's probably not going to be the best quality. You're probably going to replace it later, but you'll have something so that you can keep working. And the thing that we need to do is capture some version of this script so that we can now go then and time these clips to where they start and end with the lines in the script that they're supposed to be happening against. So we need to record something, even though that means there's going to be a whole bunch of us talking at the same time. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk everybody through recording it. You can use the Blue Snowball or the built-in mic on your Mac just to capture yourself recording the performance. But then I will, once everybody gets to animating and we can have a quiet room, I'll let people go around and just one at a time re-record theirs using one of the Blue Snowball microphones. Now these Blue Snowballs are scattered around the room. We have one for every 2 computers, but let's see how we would do that. First, we go to our Premiere Pro settings, audio hardware. So to get to your preferences in any Mac app, the shortcut is actually Command, comma. And I say any, there's probably exceptions, but virtually every Mac app I've ever used, if you hit Command, comma, it'll take you straight to your preferences/settings. So with preferences open, let's go to our audio hardware, because here's where we tell the computer which microphone are you going to use, or which output out of the system do we want to hear our audio in. So right now I've got my MacBook Pro microphone, and the output of my audio is set to the Crestron. So that's the system that's playing back that you guys are listening to. If you have a Blue Snowball plugged into your computer, when you click on that default input, you should see the Blue Snowball as one of the options. You'll notice that mine lets me connect from, I've got some wireless mics that plug in. You can actually record from your iPhone if you've got it already connected and you're using the same Apple ID. It's pretty crazy. I can capture from other things like other pieces of software, but I'm just going to use my built-in MacBook Pro microphone for the default input. I'll leave the output alone for just a second. Actually, you know what? I'm not, because I can't. Well, no, actually I can now. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to hit okay. And the one other thing, actually, I'm realizing I don't want to forget this, is down here at the bottom, when you're recording your voiceover, if it's a simple little voiceover like this, you don't necessarily need to hear yourself through your headphones. But if you're trying to record a voiceover and you hear a large delay in your headphones, you need to change your buffer size. So click on that buffer size, and let's bring it down to something like 64 or 128. The bigger this number, the more delay you will hear from the time your voice goes into the microphone before you actually hear it in your headphones. So I'm just going to set this down here to 64. And there's one other thing we need to adjust. Under settings, if you click on that, this will bring up the Mac app audio MIDI setup. Go ahead and open that up. So once you click on settings here in Premiere, it'll open up this audio devices window. And under there is where you can control the volume of the microphone or the sensitivity of the microphone. So right now you see it has selected my MacBook microphone, and I can adjust the volume or the sensitivity of this mic right here. As long as it's somewhere a little past midway, it's probably going to be plenty loud. So I'm going to leave it up here at about 2/3 for now, and I'm going to close this up. But if you find that you're recording, and even if you're quiet, the microphone is too loud, go in there and pull that sensitivity down. If you're recording and the microphone is too quiet, go in there and pull that sensitivity up. Lauren. Okay, let me come and check for just a second. So right now I'm going to hit OK. And it's ready for me to start recording my voiceover. So let me show everybody how to do this, and then you can all just go off in a cacophony of sound, just recording your script. So with the correct microphone chosen, you're going to want to choose the Blue Snowball for a good one. These built-in microphones are pretty roomy. They're going to sound pretty ambient because they pick up everything. But I'm going to switch over to my script, make sure I'm ready to go, and listen to the way I approach this. I'm going to come down to the track I want to record on. You'll notice it has a mute button to turn it off, a solo button to mute all other tracks, and a little microphone to voice over record. Everybody see that? So now I'm going to turn down my room, my speakers here, so that it doesn't get picked up. And now I'm going to hit this button. It'll count down a 3, 2, 1, and then it'll start recording. 3, 2, 1. It's recording. I can see it's recording. I can see my levels coming in. I'm going to switch over to my script and read this slowly carefully and with nice little dramatic pauses in between. Traveling is not just about going from one place to another. It's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last a lifetime. From the breathtaking scenery of the Grand Canyon to the sun-kissed beaches of Thailand, the world is full of beautiful places just waiting to be discovered. Take a stroll through the vibrant streets of Paris, marvel at the historic monuments of Rome, or soak in the bustling energy of New York City. So you'll notice I screwed up a little line there. If you screw up, I'm just going to come back here. The space bar will stop it. And I can see I got some of it good. Traveling is not just about. So once if I've got it pretty close, I've got all this early stuff. I'm just going to trim off any excess. Line this up at the beginning. So it should start together. And you'll notice the photos are mostly named with the line that they're going to be up against. But I don't have to re-record this whole thing just because I messed up one line. Historic monuments of Rome, or soak in the bustling energy of New York City. Somewhere around here I messed it up. Take a stroll through the vibrant streets of Paris. Marvel at the historic monuments. There you go. I screwed up. Marvel at the historic monuments of Rome. So what I'm going to do is just put my playhead right where I want to start recording. Hit that record button again, and it'll give me 3 seconds of counting in. And then it'll start recording right where that playhead is. That's what we call a punch in. So I've got my playhead right before that line that I messed up. Take a stroll through the vibrant streets of Paris. Marvel at the historic monuments of Rome. Oops. Undo. Command Z. Let's try that one more time. Bring down my speakers so I don't get feedback. But now I can't hear it. Damn. Let's see. I'm gonna try this one more time. Okay, and I'll just record it right here. The vibrant streets of Paris. Marvel at the historic monuments of Rome, or soak in the bustling energy of New York City. Each destination offers its own unique charm and character. For the thrill seekers, there's no shortage of excitement. Go skydiving, go whitewater rafting, or go paragliding for an unforgettable experience. Embrace the local culture by trying new foods, visiting local supermarkets and museums, and immersing yourself in the local way of life. So what are you waiting for? Pack your bags and set out on your next adventure today. So I didn't quite get that, but I'm just going to clean that up and put these together. Let's see how it sounds now. Take a stroll through the streets of Paris. Marvel at the historic monuments of Rome, or soak in the bustling energy. Okay, so that's working okay. Once we've got that recorded, I'm going to do the same thing as I did with my, we did in video 1 or project 1. I'm going to select my audio clips, tag them as dialogue. And this time, instead of going down one by one through these, you can actually just choose a preset at the top, and I'll choose that podcast voice. That will dial in my loudness, any repairs, etc., and make it sound really nice and balanced against this background music. Unmute it, and here's what it sounds like. Traveling is not just about going from one place to another. It's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last a lifetime. Make sense? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to stop talking for a second. If you don't have a Blue Snowball mic, what you can do is just use your built-in microphone, and then I'll pass around, or you can go around and grab a Blue Snowball microphone here in a second. But just record one, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come into each of these clips and we're going to time them so that they happen over the line they're supposed to have. So right here, traveling is not just about going from one place to another. It's about exploring new cultures. Oops, so this one starts too late. It needs to start back here. 2 ways we can fix that. We can hover our mouse over the edge, trim this back to where it happens between those word gaps, and then I can select this gap and delete it. That's weird. Okay. Something's going on there. Let me save and see if that fixes it. Wow. Okay. So I don't know how that wouldn't work. And it's all grayed out. Or we can actually do this a couple ways. When we hover over that edge, if we want to do what we call a ripple trim, when you hover over the edge and get your trim tool, if you hold the command key down, it'll turn yellow. And then when I go to trim this back, Boy, it really does not want to ripple trim. Maybe I need to restart Premiere. But the other alternative is if we hover between the two to where it's turning into this trim tool, if you hold the command key down, you see it turns into what we call a roll tool. And then I can literally move both of them at the same time. And I can just roll this over until it's in the gap between words. And now it'll look like this. Another, it's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last a lifetime. Oh, I need that creating memories that last a lifetime. Let me try this. I'm going to move this over and see if it'll let me delete this gap. It won't. So I'm going to restart Premiere, but I can also just hold down Command, click, and trim this. It's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last a lifetime. All right. So I can go through and continue to roll my edit points. Lifetime. From the breathtaking scenery of the Grand Canyon to the sun-kissed. So trim this off. Well, it's really not going to do it. So obviously there's something that's going on here with Premiere. So I'll restart Premiere. In the meantime, that's what we're going to do. So I want you to record your scratch take, go in and retime your edits until they happen over the lines that they're supposed to. Make sense? Lauren? Okay, I'll come over and fix yours here real quick, but everybody else go ahead and just record a scratch take with your headphones on and then retime your edits. And then we'll take, in a little bit, we'll take some time and everybody will be quiet when we get to animating. So everybody will just be furiously animating and everybody can take turns re-recording a clean dialogue. Okay, all right, go ahead. Let me get Lauren real quick. I will just, yes. Okay, so you're looking at the output. We just use this one to do microphone. There you go. Yes. You have to go set your inputs. Man, perfect. Perfect. And there's no blue snowball in this, so you just choose the built-in microphone. Yes. Okay. When you read yours, don't rush. Deliver each line, have a nice little pause between, and then pick up the next line. You can always delete space, but if you're rushing, everything will feel rushed. We don't want that. Yeah, I'm recording this class. Okay, and we'll wrap this up next time. Okay.
And creating memories, the last line. From the breathtaking scenery, the sun hits the beach of Thailand. The world is full of beautiful places. Getting to the take a stroll through the cyber marvel with this historic monuments and stoke in the bustling energy of New York City. Each destination, only each charm. Embrace the local building and new food. Visiting local water museum. And environment yourself as the local waste one. What are you in? Pack your bags, set out on your next adventure today.
Each destination offers its own care. For the thrill seekers, there is no storage to understand. No skydiving, light water rafting, no paragliding or unforgettable experiences. Embrace the local culture by trying the foods, visiting local markets, museums, and immersing yourself in the local energy. So what do you pack your bags,
All right.
I don't see it. It looks like it's recording.
It's about exploring new culture. From the working scenery of the Grand Canyon to the sun-kissed beaches of the world is full of beautiful places. Traveling is not just about it's about exploring new cultures and efforts that last. From the scenery of the Grand Canyon to the sun-kissed beaches of Thailand, the world is full of beautiful places just waiting to be discovered. Take a stroll through the vibrant streets of Paris, marvel at the historic monuments of Rome, or soak in the bustling energy of New York City. Each destination offers its own unique charm and character. For the thrill seekers, there's no shortage of sights. Go skydiving, whitewater rafting, or go paragliding for an unforgettable experience. Embrace the local culture by trying new foods, visiting local markets and museums, and immersing yourself in the local way of life. So what are you waiting for? Pack your bags and set out on your next adventure today.
Traveling is not just about going from one place to another, but exploring new cultures.
All right. So remember, that was a scratch track. There's all kinds of noise in background. A couple people's computers had issues. Restart when you run into something like that. It recorded, but nothing was there at the end. So just restart and that should fix it. Then everybody else will just want to grab one of the blue mics, plug it in their computer, choose it from the audio hardware and re-record. There's after you've got your timing. Because once you get the timing dialed in, it's going to be mostly the same once you re-record. You can either just cut your audio and nudge it around or just tweak the timing for the new recording. All right. So does everybody have at least something with some of their pieces started? Great. Okay, so let me show you these two things, because then that will give us a good 10, 12 minutes of silence that then people can take turns, and I'll just have you take turns re-recording a vocal. So step one is you're going to go through and you're going to time things out. Let's see if this actually fixed it now. In the sun-kissed beaches of Thailand, the world. So if I trim this back over here and now I select the gap, it is still not ripple deleting. What is happening here? So maybe I need to move the whole thing, but you can also just move the clip. But normally you can simply delete the gap. Thailand, the world is full of beautiful. All right, so what do we need to do next? You're going to trim them all to their lines. They're going to be longer and shorter. Some of them are going to be longer and shorter than others. Just select all these and move them back just to get a little closer. But then you'll notice if we look through all these, they're different sizes. Some of them don't fit on the screen because they were more vertical. Others are just showing like different parts of the screen, but not actually seeing the whole thing. So everybody go ahead and time out at least the first 4 or 5 clips real quick. And then I want to show you how to animate, and then we'll be animating for the rest of the time, and that'll give people a chance to record a clean vocal. So just go through and time out the first 4 or 5 clips, or as many as you can get done in the next minute or so.
When we talk about parents, those are going to be.
Several of them are if you didn't leave any gap between your words. You could either just cut it and like add a little space in the audio so that they last a little longer. That's the simplest solution. But that was why I kind of slowed down when I was doing those, is so I would give enough time for the image to be on screen. No, with your ID. No. You know, I'm just going to email. All right, so everybody got a few of these timed? All right, pause and look up here and let me just show you how to animate them, because you can really do them both at the same time. You can time them and then you can animate them. But I'm going to pop down to my Premiere timeline, hit my / key to zoom out. Actually, let's go ahead and zoom in here on the first one, and let's look at animating this. First, I'm going to click this first one. And I want to make sure under my sequence menu that I turn on selection follows playhead. So turn on selection follows playhead. And the reason for that is when we go through and animate these, if selection follows playhead is turned on and we have the track targeted with its little blue box, then as soon as I move to the next clip, it'll automatically be selected. So I'm going to take this first clip, double click it, which loads it up into our source viewer. And then I'll click over to my effect controls, or Shift 5 will switch to your effect controls window. This is what we used in the previous project to rescale things and make them larger and smaller. Now let's remind ourselves of a couple of shortcuts. The up arrow takes us to the previous edit point on that track. The down arrow takes us to the next edit point on the track. Everybody's working the same way? Great. So I'm going to start here at the first edit point. And what I want to do is come up to my position and scale. And first, I want to think about, what do I want to see on the screen? Where should it start and where should it end? So for example, do I want to start with the family in focus and then zoom out so we can see the whole thing? Do I want to just do a little pan up, or a little tilt up is what we'd call that? Do I want to pan it from one side to the next? Like, where do we want to start and where do we want to end? So tell me your thoughts on this. Where would you start and where would you end in terms of what the screen is focused on and what the image is focused on? Focus on the family and then go up. So what we would do is we would select position or scale so that the little lines get selected and we can see our little resizing points on it. We can also click on this area here at the bottom where it says fit. And if my file is too big, I can actually just zoom down to like 25% or something smaller, so I can maybe see it a little bit easier. But the one thing that I actually like to do is, especially if you're working with images that are wildly different sizes, when we pulled these into Photoshop, you'll notice that some of them are too narrow, others are too wide, others are too tall, etc. So what we want to do is, with each of these files, I can actually right-click on them and choose Scale to Frame Size. And you'll see that that automatically scales it down to fit in the frame. Now, because I already changed this one, it's even smaller, but these little backward pointing arrows next to position and scale will reset it. So what I'm going to do is actually just select all of these clips, right-click, Scale to Frame Size. And you'll see that that now resizes them all to fit. So I can just zoom out, select all the clips, right click and scale to frame size. That way they'll start all fitting in the screen. So go ahead and select all your little image clips and scale to frame size. Then go back to the very first one. I'm going to select it so it shows up here in my effects controls. Thumbs up when you're there. All right. And then here's how we do this. So just pause and watch. I'm going to do several of them and show you some like easy ways to continue to improve this. So when I first get the image, since the whole thing is on the screen now, I can kind of make an easier decision. Where do I want it to start? Where do I want it to end? So in order to do this now, to animate it, I usually will have my playhead at the very beginning of the file first, at the very beginning of the clip. You can drag around up here as well. I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to come to position and scale, and you can actually animate any of these, but I'm just going to do mostly position and scale, maybe rotation if we want. And I'm going to turn on these little stopwatches. And you'll notice when you do, it says toggle animation. And when you turn both those on, it creates these little keyframes. Just watch for a second and understand the process. So I've made two little keyframes, and what that did is lock this position and this scale in place. Now, if I change it, so if I select position, for example, I want to start on the family, I can change the position or the scale, and you see that now my scale is 136, and I can move them up. So now it's starting on the family. Now to change it later, I just need to move my playhead, and I can actually just do that down here with hitting the down arrow. Of course, that takes me to the next one. So what do I do to get back to the last frame of the previous clip? Left arrow one time. So that moved me back. I still have this one in place. You can see the original keyframes. And now I can either click this little button to add another keyframe, or if I just change them at all, it'll make a keyframe. So in this case, I'm going to just use the same kind of drag and drop, select position or scale. I'm going to move this down so that everything is visible there. But you know what else? You'll notice what happened as soon as I changed the position. What happened? It made a keyframe. It said, oh, wait, this position is different than the previous keyframe. And so watch what happens between them. It simply just moves from this position value. And if there's a later keyframe, it changes to that. A couple other things, though. If I play through this and I go, oh, that's nice. But when I get to this other keyframe, and actually, in order to edit that, I need to go to the exact keyframe. So you can use these little arrows to go to the next keyframe. So that took me exactly there. And maybe I want to scale this up too. And you'll notice when I change the scale, it adds another keyframe on scale. So I could scale it up and maybe even do it like this. So now I've moved it and rescaled it. So here's what it looks like. It simply goes from where they are, family focused, and you can see these numbers changing because if there's two keyframes, it'll automatically scale between them. So here's what it looks like.
Traveling is not just about going from one place to another.
Great. So we've got a good, simple animation. Now, the important thing to remember here is these little keyframes are storing those numbers. So if I'm looking at this later and I go,
Traveling is not just about
I like what I did, but I would actually rather start on from this view and end at the other one. If you move these keyframes, if I select them, I can delete them, I can move them. So I can actually just grab these keyframes and move the starting keyframes to the end and move these ending keyframes to the beginning. And now you notice it does the exact opposite. So it's really just a matter of storing those values. If you do anything and the playhead is someplace else, so if I move it again, you'll see it adds another keyframe. If you didn't mean to do that, simply select it and hit delete. So that's how we can easily animate our photos.
from one place to another.
But actually, I think I liked the previous one better. So for all of these, we're going to go through and we're going to create some animation. Now, here's one thing. Don't worry about black bars for now. We'll fix those separately later. But I'm going to start with this one, and maybe I want to add my position and scale. Choose my position, and I'm going to start with a nice maybe zoom in on Jamie and I, and turn this just into a down arrow, left arrow. So I'm on the last clip. I can see the keyframes, and I'll maybe just pan up. but also I'm going to add just a little bit of scale up. So it's like zooming in just a hair.
It's about exploring new.
And that moves quite a bit, little like fast for me.
It's about
So I probably am going to just say, that looks a little awkward. So I maybe don't want it to be quite that much. And let's just, once we're at this playhead is on our keyframes, we can actually just move it again. And now it won't move quite as far,
It's about exploring new cultures and creating.
etc. So you can go through and easily create your animations by turning on this position and scale, adjust our photo. Maybe this one, I'll start right here. Go to the end of the clip. You don't even have to go to the end. You could actually just go to right here, anywhere. Maybe scale that up a little bit. And then if you want to just move these, you can just select them and move them to the end. Make sense? All right, so everybody go ahead. We got 15 minutes left. That's going to be enough time for everybody to get a good quiet recording so you don't have a bunch of background noise, but you're going to time out your voice or your pictures to the words that they're supposed to cover. And then you're going to go ahead and add a little bit of animation to them. So you just got a little bit of movement. And ultimately, we will go back in next class and we'll add things like cross dissolves so that they flow together more smoothly.
Going from one place to another. It's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last a life.
And you can see how pretty that looks. All right. So if you are ready to record a clean voiceover, raise your hand and I will have you do it first. Okay, Lauren's ready. Is everybody else? Okay, she needs help. Is anyone ready to record a clean voiceover? No, at this point, if you've got a scratch track that you have, it's more about the scratch track was supposed to give you the ability to time them out. So if you want to go through and finish timing them and then record, that's fine too. You can always just come in 2 minutes early before class and record it if you find that. We will finish this in class next time because we're going to do a special animation with number 16 since we've got individual layers. So we'll finish it in class next time and it'll be due at the end of class.
Are we going to Photoshop 16 or just background?
No, we finished that one last class.
No, the one we just did. At the beginning of class.
Yeah, 15. Yeah,
Not 16 yet.
yeah, 15 should be already in there at the end of this.
Yeah, I was done that. We're not
Yeah,
going back to
correct.
that.
There's no more. Yep. Yeah, we'll finish next class. We'll just finish animating 16. Okay, so go through, animate, time, and you can add some little cross dissolves in between,
Another. It's about exploring new.
and we'll pick up the rest from there. Still not recording? Plug in. This. Quit and reopen that from here. Then reopen it.
It's not just about. It's about.
Damn it, no.
Yeah, I feel myself like.
So just, is there a longer way?
Yeah.
On hardware, change that buffer size to.
Strongly, because it's not just about going from one place to another. It's about exploring new cultures and creating memories that last. One of the taking the scenery of the Grand Canyon, the sun-kissed beaches of Thailand, the world